Morning everybody, welcome to tutorial number 4 of this sequence that we're doing to show you the power of this thing called the Aluma platform, a cloud-based engine using machine learning and some AI to interpret documents in pretty much any format, make sense of them, and then extract valuable data for use by your employees or for back-end systems. This could be invoices, it could be contracts, it could be CVs, it could be legal documents, HR files, you name it. Anything that comes in with a text layer, um, uh, with a document wrapper. It could be an email, it could be a PDF, it could be a TIFF. Anyway, all of the work that we've done so far has been really based around the command line interface. So this is, you're on your desktop, you're interacting with the cloud using a command-based interface. And we've seen that and we've used it to, last time we used it to create some extraction data from invoices. And then finally we wrote those to a file. So you can kind of get the feel of invoice extraction. That took us about sort of 10 or 20 minutes. You probably do it even quicker. So that gives you a feel for how quick you can really start to get the power of the platform usable. 10 minutes, for goodness sake, and you're getting valuable invoice data or other data out of your documents. Anyway, without further ado, what Aluma have done that's really quite nice for us is given us another interface to create extractors. It's a cloud-based, it's a browser-based interface that hooks directly into your subscription via the dashboard and allows you to create these extractors. So without further ado, let's have a look at those. So you recall this is your dashboard. You've logged in. Here's your subscription. You've got some details in there. Your account ID and so on is hidden in there. If you need to use support, the support team are really quick and really helpful. They'll probably ask you for your account ID, and that's actually tucked away in there. Just a little maybe useful tip for you. So we talked about data extraction via the browser, via the GUI. So here's a list within my subscription of the extractors that already exist. There's a postcode extractor. These first 3 are ones I've created to test the system. The others that are prefixed with Aluma are extractors that they provide for you. So they've got an extractor that extracts all personally identifiable information, one that identifies a person's name, and various invoice, GB and US extractors. We're going to create a new one. We're going to take a CV, or no, sorry, I should say a covering letter for a job application, and we're going to start extracting that. So this is a piece of correspondence. We're going to use this extractor interface to kind of show you how that works. So first step is create an extractor. This is a 3-step process. First, it wants you to pick a document. So we pick a file. These are some files I've created. You recall you were given some test data that we downloaded in session 1, tutorial 1. That at the time it had a folder called dive records, a folder called invoices, and a folder called mortgages. I've added some that we're going to be using later on in different tutorials. There's a classification tutorial, and there's one called a non. And inside a non, there's some generic kind of files that are anonymized but usable for our for the purposes of today. This is one we're going to use. It's probably worth a quick look at that document. Maximize it. So this is a nice clean PDF. There's a text layer behind this. Today we can talk about the subtleties and the differences between TIFFs and kind of dirty files that have been digitized versus ones that are born digital like this. But for the purposes of today, it's all about the extraction rather than the nuances of OCR. So we've got some dates, we've got some postcodes, addresses, dates in different formats, which is interesting. So have a look here. We've got the 25th of January in long form, but this person's available for work in February. Bit of details, some links. So it's pretty much a straightforward 1-page covering letter. So we're going to pick that one. So pick your file that displays in the left. The next step, step 2, is you'll see here you've got 6 kind of pages worth of these extractor modules, and we touched on these before when we were building extractors using the modules in session 2. But here they are graphically displayed. So this is quite powerful, this first one. This allows you to hook into a database, an external database, to verify the information that you're extracting from the form matches a reference database. It might be your supplier list, and indeed in this case it's used for invoices. So you give it a connection string, the database type, and it's expecting within that database these fields, and it will use those to cross-check against what it's extracted to make sure that you get perfect data, perfect normalized data. So no matter what the invoice would say, that's what you get. So we're not using that one clearly because it's not actually an invoice, and we haven't set up a database at the back end in any case. But actually, this could be valid for any other reference information that you may hold in a master database. We just need to change the fields potentially for what you're trying to do. So it might be in a legal firm, you've got various case matters coming into the organization, and you want to cross-reference that against your case management system. So it will pull out the dates, the third parties, the other legal firms, the references, the dates, etc., and cross-check it here and give you a consistent result to route that incoming document by virtue of what it's found on the piece of correspondence. But I digress. Powerful, we're not using it today. We will, however, be looking for some dates, so we want to extract some dates. And you see here you've got a couple of options. We've got a locale, so let's take a little look at that. Okay, so it can handle US or European date formats. I think it's only the US that does the reverse date thing as far as I know. And if there are some keywords in proximity to the date that you're particularly interested in, you can pop them in here, and then it will search for not just any date, but if there's several dates, the one in proximity to that keyword. It's got some subtlety and some nuances, and you may want to tweak it using a more in-depth extractor that you can create using the Visual Basic plugin that we may be looking at later. Date of birth, so this is kind of specifically using some logic that is looking for strings that might relate to date of birth. So they've used the guys at Aluma have used their expertise to create a pretty decent extractor module that will find pretty much every date of birth. Really useful for medical records, etc. Yeah, have we got an email address in here? Actually, we don't, but it doesn't matter. We could say we want them anyway. We're not doing invoices, so there's no invoice amount. There's lots of invoice stuff there. Yes, we would be interested in their name. You'll see a little quirk with this one because we have got a name. It's been anonymized, so it's a pretty unusual surname. So it'll be interesting to see if it does pick that one up. Okay, tab 3. Phone numbers. Yeah, we've got some phone numbers. So let's find that out. Again, we've got a locale. So it's GB we're interested in. So it looks for, kind of uses a mask to choose the right number. Purchase order note, reference number. No, not for these. Regular expression. Now this is quite cool. It allows you to use a regex that you can pop in here. And it's also really handily remembered, I think, the regex that I actually wanted to use from the last time I tried it. So I'm not kind of sure whether that is the right one. Let me just get the one that I actually want to use. Sausage fingers again. But what I'm doing is doing a Windows V to get my clipboard up and just verifying that that looks pretty similar to the one that I know is correct in the clipboard. Yeah, that looks pretty similar. So this is a regex that I know works and that we're going to use. This is actually going to be looking for postcode. It looks quite convoluted, but there's a whole bunch of these regex sort of I don't know, tutorial sites that have got a bunch of really useful regexes, so you can just grab those off the internet and paste them in here. I like using this one because it seems to give me more reliable results than I get from the stock Aluma one. So really useful feature there, the regular expression. You can look for a match for simple text, so an exact match for simple text if that's something that is important to you to be able to identify in a document. So there's those. Section 4, UK address. Yeah, let's have a look for a UK address. We're not looking at supplier, that's all related to VAT. These are medical record stuff. National insurance number. Well, they haven't put a national insurance number in here, unsurprisingly, but it would be something that you could pull out if you wanted to. And then final page, US, some US reference information. They're quite US-centric because one large US company was a very early adopter of this technology and are using it to process multi-millions of mortgages, mortgage documentation, which still seems to be in abundance in the States. So we picked our reference file. That was step one. We built, we pointed to the extractor modules, and now we're going to save this extractor. Yes, that's step 3. So let's go ahead and save the extractor. Oh, before we do that, we can test it actually. So we can run the extractor before we save it, just to see that the information that we're getting is good. So let's do that first. It's running against that document. Oh, cool. This is expecting, by the way, as a source document, a PDF. And the reasons for that is a PDF allows the system to use sort of XY coordinates, coordinate data. So you get this really beautiful kind of highlighting. So you match your results from the document highlighted on the document itself on the left. So it's got a couple of dates. 25th of the 2nd, 2019, which is that one. Really cool. So it's used a short form and been able to extract it. It's also been able to normalize the date string. So this one here is 25th of January 2019, but it's come back as 2501. So that's beautiful. It's identified a UK phone number. There is no result for national insurance. Now this is one I mentioned to you. There is no result for the name, and that's probably because this is quite a poor choice of document, poorly designed document from my perspective, because there is really no one called Emma Anyone, and so it did not decide that Emma Anyone represented a reliable hit for a name. And 2 postcodes, that was using the regex, if you remember the regex that we had. So that looks like a fairly good extractor given the information that's on the form. Lesson note to myself, I've got to improve this document as a test document to change that name to something a bit more useful. Okay, what do we need to do now? Well, we can save the extractor. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Yes, we'll call it Aluma. Okay. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you. We can look at what the ready-made one against the invoices actually. Let's do that just as to round off this session, shall we? So let's pick that one. It wants us to upload a document. Upload a file. There we go. Choose a file. We had some sample documents, sample invoices that were provided by Aluma. So let's go ahead and grab. One of them was a PDF. Remember, this is what this GUI-based system is expecting, a PDF. Happy to talk to you about how to kind of get normalized PDFs into these sort of configuration elements of the system. Adobe, the full version of Adobe Acrobat is pretty good at generating searchable PDFs from TIFFs. It does a pretty good job, and that's the one I use. And it can be used in batch mode as well. So let's upload that document. There it is. Yep, quite a small file using that one. So we're going to run the extractor on that file. Slightly different when you do it this way. You don't actually get a preview of the document in this case, but what you do get is these results. So pretty cool. What we could do as a final exercise, given that we've still got a little bit of time, we could create quickly an invoice extractor and see how we get on. So let's create an extractor. We're going to open a document, browse for the document. We're going to pick number 7. So this is our reference invoice. Say OK. Here's our invoice. That was the invoice that actually had that data extracted. So we don't have a database yet. Let's go for some dates. UK dates. There's no date of birth, no email address. We can go for an email address if there is one, which there is. A generic one, but we'll pick it anyway. Page 2. Line items. Okay, so it's expecting us to provide it with like a purchase order system or some reference that correlates with the invoice, cross-checking against the purchase order, or some other system that actually describes what the thing that was ordered looks like. Invoice document type. Okay, that's cool. Okay, you get a choice to allow debit and claim notes here. I think we don't need that. Let's go for the invoice dates. Local as GB. We're not doing that line items because we haven't got the database. Invoice number. Don't need an individual name on an invoice. Phone number, purchase order number, reference number. Okay, maybe there'll be a... cool. So you can put a regular expression in here to correspond with the purchase order number format that you would expect, or to create, this is an option in terms of that. I think it's an option anyway. Let's see if we can have it. Reference number. No, we don't need that. Regular expression. We could use something there if we wanted to, but we're not going to. Supplier bank details. Yeah, they got that. Let's go with that. So that company number, that's in there. And we haven't got a database. Supplier tax ID. Yeah, we need a database. We're going to have to get a database ready at some stage. UK address. Yep. And what else? National interest number, vehicle, UK bank account. Yeah, let's have that. See how we get on. And then finally, yeah, that's all. It's not a US invoice. So let's see how that gets on. So this is us creating probably something similar to the extractor that was already configured for you. We're doing this ourselves this time, seeing what we get, seeing how close we come to the reference. Okay, that's cool. So it didn't find a purchase order number, probably because there isn't one. The address. Okay, I did get the address, just didn't render it on the form for some reason. But it's extracted it, properly extracted it. It's fully extracted. That is just a rendering issue, as opposed to has it actually burnt the document out. We're not doing redaction at this stage. But yeah, so it's got some. That would be enhanced if we had a database. Then we could then verify and cross-check. But because this is such a clean document, we got pretty reliable results all the way through. Unambiguous date, tax point, all looks good. So we could choose to save that, or just because this is for the purposes of training a tutorial, we won't bother saving that. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. That kind of finishes the classification piece. Next thing we're going to do is look at a couple of ways. Sorry, extraction piece. That completes the extraction piece. We're going to look at 2 different ways of classifying next, and then our final bit, or more or less our final bit, will be a look into redaction. That's the ability usually used for subject access requests to identify personally identifiable information and then remove it from that piece of correspondence or whatever document type may be of interest to you. That's it for now. Look forward to the next one and see you again soon. Stay safe and well. Take care.